Well, I'm looking here at some nice design work created in a gCADPlus drawing, but the drawing is giving problems when it's not losing data when it's being worked on, but gCADPlus is shutting down from time to time and restarting. First thing to do when looking at a drawing that's giving a degree of problems like this is to go and look at the file size, and you may be able to see here that it's 11.3 megabytes, and for what is a relatively small looking drawing, that's a very big file size. So how do you go about trying to reduce that file size, and we would hope performance of the design would improve? So we'll go into modelspace, and we can see here that quite correctly we are holding, the designer here is holding lots of different alternative designs, but the one that is current, but the one of interest is this one here in the center. What I would do is go to layers, and I would turn on all layers, whether they're used or not. And now you can see our light bulb, and we'll go okay. Because what I suspect is happening here is that the model space environment is filled with a whole lot of material that's not actually used in the current version of this design. You may be able to see now the reappearance or appearance of a whole lot of new entities. So I'm going to right click and zoom extents at this point. And up at the top of the screen here, I can see what's properly paths. And let's see if we can select it. And we can, and I'll zoom out a little and make sure that I put handles on. I suspect that's a block that's been made temporarily, and I'd like to see the base point of that block. So we'll go to Tools, Local Parameters, Selection, Grips, and grips are currently on, so I should be able to see where the base point of that block is. I'll just zoom out a little further, and now we've found it. So over to the left here in this area is an indication of the base point of that block. So I'm pretty sure that's got nothing to do with the performance of this drawing. So let's remove it and zoom extents again. And I'll start removing. Remember, this is the area we're interested in. So let's see if we can set a crossing window up and delete those entities. What I'm looking for is a substantial change in the performance of this particular drawing file. And I think we can get rid of these as well. At this point, I'll probably save the drawing and zoom extents again. There's still something outside here. Might just be an error base point again, so I'll use zoom a window and get in a little tighter. And again, we can get rid of a whole lot of material. We of course have got backups of this file, so we're just trying to see if we can maintain things very much more easily and work on it without that reboot occurring. There's a warning here that many of the blocks that have been made here haven't got a correct base point. One way to check that, I'll do another save, is to go to the blocks tag. Make sure you display the base point. You can see there's a north point block where the base point's well off. A survey with, again, new house. So there are some problems here in setting the base point to a lot of the elements that are used here. And you can see that I'm now reducing and zoom a window there. Save the drawing again. That entity, your properties box is handy. That's actually an image, so I don't have that image now. So I'll remove it and we'll do a save and a quick check of the file size. Remember, we had 11.3 megabytes. We're down to 9,009 megabytes. I'd be inclined to now purge unused objects. We can get rid of layers and text styles and blocks that are not used in this part of the design, and save. Check our file size again. We're down to 7.7 megabytes. We've got a whole lot of layouts here, and I'm going to pause the drawing and get rid of quite a number of those, because if I go there, you can see that. And this design is not using gCADPlus in the usual way. What's happening here is that blocks are being made of parts of the drawing, then brought into the layout environment and scaled. So it's got a scale of 0.005, a 1 to 200 scale. So it's not normally the way you would use gCADPlus, and it may well be that lots of these layouts sitting there are causing grief, and it's possible that the designers in this team haven't yet worked out how to control visibility in different layouts, but I digress. Those blocks which are sitting in layout space, lots of them, that one's whole garden, have been copied from the model space environment. So there's endless duplication going on in this drawing. So I'll pause now and get rid of those layouts, because what we're interested in, can we get in there and design without this drawing giving grief? The drawing or the design is probably nearing completion, so you wouldn't want to, you probably intend to press on as is and put up with the reboots just to finish off, but it'd be worth the new design of using it, layouts in the normal way. I do like the way this swale has been presented. There's multiple polylines to give that sort of boundary to the swale area for treatment of runoff water. I really like that. So there's a lot of interesting things being done in this drawing. I might show you what happened when I used Zoom Extents in layout number 6 here. You can see this layout space is carrying a very large number of extra entities. And notice how that frame that was carrying an image file is still here, even though we deleted it in model space. So I would suggest right now this drawing carrying massive amounts of information in layout spaces, and Zoom Extents is important for us to get rid of that. So we do a crossing window, delete it, and once that's done, you can go down to the tab and say delete that layout. And I won't bore you with going through all of that. I'll just pause. Well, the layouts have now been removed. And remember that at this stage, we have a file size, we're down to 7.7. But if we now purge unused objects, oops, we've got 40 blocks now. They were all being carried in that space, in those layout spaces. Well, I must confess that the number of blocks that I saw in those layout spaces made me retract a little, and I've gone back to the original drawing. All we've done here is we've left all of the developing all of the developing ideas are all here, and of course here is the one that we want to work with. And my feeling now is that this drawing should behave itself reasonably well, and we can work on this drawing in a layout space, in a series of layout spaces, and just control the visibility of elements within it. So let's just go to View and Layout. Format and Layout. We'll make a new one, and I imagine we'd like to be able to present any part of our drawing at a scale of, say, 1 to 200. So we'll pick an A1 landscape sheet, and here we are. Here's our new layout, and in layout we can look at any part of the design without the need to make a block and throw it into this environment. So I'll turn off the grid, and we'll double click in the middle of this one. That'll give us this a magenta box which we can rotate. So we put the box there just for the moment and right click and say display on the sheet. So there's a very nice developing design. We've got all the layers showing a lot of information's come from a survey sheet. North is pointing up. What we need to do is to control the visibility of elements in here. Now we might, it depends on your approach here, but I guess what I would suggest is looking at the text. You can see the text in the survey drawing is all wonky and at the wrong angle, whereas the lettering that our design team has put on here, arbor, walk, and so on, is going to go along here. That's all horizontal. So even though we could rotate that block, that we could rotate, swing the rotation angle here and get things squared off as far as the survey is concerned. Clearly, you don't think this team want to do that. So we'll go back to display on the sheet. If we pick the floating viewport, you can actually change its view angle. If I made it, and I was experimenting, I think it was 38, and everything spins around, so you can do that. But I suspect this team is not interested in doing that. But by changing layers on and off, within any layer, we can deal with things. So we might be interested, I presume this is a block. We might be able to go back into model, pick the block. It's currently on layer 0, which is awkward from my point of view here because elements in the drawing itself are also on layer 0. So I need to spend some time finding what elements are in the survey drawing. I'll just do one. So we say we can edit the block. And just let's imagine that we don't want this text in here. That's on a layer S_text. So let's go to layers. Ooh. So S for survey _text. Incidentally, that's why we prefix all the, and I'll turn that one off and show the result. But that's why we use L for everything that we landscapers put into these CAD drawings. We have a layer called L construction, which is just a circle and a point in the middle for planting guide to our planting team, whereas everything, all plant symbols, go into that layer. So the surveyor here is following, this is based on an international standard for drafting. The survey is following that international standard, and we're trying to do it, but lots of other things in here, lots of other entities in the drawing have not been following that. But I digress. So let's see if that text has disappeared, which it has, and we'll close the block editor. If we now go to Layout, we're looking in this layout space, we need to find the floating viewport, which is the dark one here. And we can go to viewport layers. Just say, for the sake of argument, we wanted to turn contours off. So we could say, okay, we'll turn that one off. Now, when we come back and we zoom in here, in theory now, the contours should be turned off, and they're not. So then you need to do some more detective work. Did we turn off S contours? Now this gets very difficult for someone who's not done the drawing. Viewport layers. Oh, contours is quite possibly S contours. Might even be, here we go, major contour and minor contour. So I just picked one called contours, but it's not what we're after here. We can OK that. There we are. You may have noticed that we had contours in that area. They've now disappeared. So my point, in a very long-winded way, is I think it would be easier in this drawing to learn to master display of different parts of the drawing with different layers on and off in layout spaces. So it's been behaving nicely now, so we have to backtrack a little, whereas I was recommending removing things in layout space. Now we're saying, sorry, I recommended initially getting details in the model space out, and that should improve stability of the drawing. Now I suspect the major difficulty here was the very large number of blocks that were inserted into layout space. I'm sorry that's been so long and so waffly, but I hope that's of some value.